don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate the news, because the news is, like, very valuable, especially, like, a long time ago. Like, it was a huge resource for media and for people to get to know things and, like, understand what was going on in the world around them. But at the same time, we have, like, so many news stations now and so many ways to receive news through media that, like, I kind of feel like the news is getting kind of redundant. But at the same time, this is a good thing, because, like, I feel like the news having multiple stations and multiple outlets is good, because then you get, because no matter how hard you try to make the news as objective as possible, you're always going to have some sort of bias, whether it be conscious or subconscious. Like, you're just, as a human, you're going to have bias with every little thing that you do. Like, even when you fucking eat an apple, like, you have bias in where you bite into the fucking apple. Like, you cannot control that. And so, like, I think it's good that the media has so many outlets, because then you get to hear, like, different people's perspective. But I feel like it's been overrun. Like, we get it. A girl got murdered. Like, a girl got raped. Like, a grandma got tied to a tree and, like, burned. Like, I'm sorry. Like, these are, like, horrible examples and, like, horrible things that happen to people. But, like, I'm just saying, for example, like, they're horrible things that happen to people every day. Like, we know that. Like, we know that. Like, there's no need to, I don't know, like, I have conflicted emotions about the news, because, like, world and, like, national problems are an issue, and, like, it is important to bring awareness to those issues, and it's important to bring variety and different points of view to those issues. But it's also really annoying when, like, each news station you press, like, has the same story playing just from a different person's perspective, or it might even be the same person's perspective. And, like, just, it's really, like, just, I'm like, really? Like, it's the same story, like, over and over and over again. Like, you get overfed when you're fed the same shit over and over and over again. Like, maybe when you're a baby, you're fine with eating the same bowl of carrots every day, but, like, by the time you're a toddler, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. And then when you're a child, you're, like, full on, like, no, I don't want to eat my vegetables. Like, that's how I feel like with the news. Like, they keep feeding me vegetables, and as a baby, you just kind of eat it and take it, whatever. As a child, you're like, no, like, I understand that I don't like this, and I don't need this, and I don't want this in my life. Like, that's what the news is to me. Like, it's vegetables. I understand that it's good for you to some extent, but, like, giving it to me daily is not going to help me, especially if it's the same fucking vegetable. Like, I'm good, thanks. Got my greens in for today. Like, fuck off. Like, Jesus. Especially when they, like, interview some, like, stupid fucks like Trump. Like, I'm sorry. I know that there are people who support Trump, and, like, I respect that, or I try to respect that, but, like, I just cannot stand him. Like, I can't. Even just hearing his voice just gets on my nerves. Like, he's so, like, I don't know. So this is why I don't like focusing on global, political, or national problems, because they're big right now. But in 10 years from now, it's all going to be history. It's all going to be something that we casually learn from. And even sometimes we don't learn from history. Because take, for Japan, for example. Like, and America has done this too with Vietnam. Okay, let's use America as an example. Okay, so America, after the Vietnam War, we literally have done nothing. Like, we have kind of brushed the Vietnam War under the rug and, like, completely ignored it. And that's, like, to me, that's, like, disrespectful, because, like, billions of lives were lost on both sides. And you're just going to ignore that, brush it under the rug, purely because you're embarrassed of, like, how horrible things went and, like, how wrong we were. Like, I'm sorry, you should learn from your mistakes and teach kids that, not brush it under the rug and act like it was just a tiny little stain when it was literally a massive, manslaughter, like, and a horrific part of our past, but it's something that we have to own up to and respect and forgive. Like, you can't just ignore something and expect it never to reappear. Like, who's to say that in the future, like, we don't have something similar to the Vietnam War happen? Who's to say something like what Hitler did to the Jews doesn't happen? Like, what if genocide and, like, fascism starts again? Like, if we don't teach people to forgive, and we don't teach people to love again, and we don't teach people what humanity's done and what countries have done and what the world has done wrong in the past, we can't learn from it, and we can't teach future generations not to make the same mistakes. Like, you know, it's just frustrating because, like, I have to, like, so many people want to ignore our history, and I'm just like, what's wrong with you? Like, history holds such a key role in our lives. Like, I can't handle that. Like, how can you not want to know your history? Like, it's hard to swallow. Like, it's a fucking bitter ass pill. Like, yeah, fucking own up to it, okay? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, people make mistakes. Like, people deal with pressure and stress, and they follow authority even when they shouldn't. Okay? Like, Hitler and Tojo and even America are examples of that. Like, we've made mistakes. Like, we need to own up to them and accept them and teach our children not to make the same mistakes. Like, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you scrape your knee and your parents like, oh, I'm sorry, and they kiss your boo-boo and they tell you that it'll get better and, like, it'll heal and blah, blah, and you're like, how do you know? And they're like, well, I know from experience when I was a kid. I'm like, how did you learn from that? Well, my mom taught me. It goes from generation to generation where you teach your kid certain characteristics or certain things to do to help with their problems. It's the same thing nationally and globally. Like, you can't just ignore wounds or pasts and, like, hurt that you've wrought on people in the past. Like, it's just gonna fester and become infected if you ignore it. Like, you have to treat the wound, otherwise it'll just grow worse and worse. Like, you can't just ignore it. Like, it's just gonna regrow and, like, become even worse than before. Like, it's kind of like a weed. Like, you can't just rip the weed out by the stem and leave the roots there. Like, in a few weeks, like, the weed is gonna grow back because the roots are still there. You have to take the weed out from the roots up, otherwise it'll keep growing back. Like, that's what we have to do with our history. We have to go to the root of it, accept it, and move on and forgive ourselves and forgive the people that are responsible for every little, like, thing. Like, we can't just ignore it and brush it under the rug. Like, we have to teach our future generations not to make the same mistakes. Like, and I feel like throughout history and, like, throughout politics and, like, throughout, like, problems right now, like, there's just so many of them, and so many of them are so repetitive throughout our history. If we would just look, we would see, like, what, like, the similarities are. Like, they're, like, almost mirror images of each other, and I'm just like, why are we going through this again when we literally have, like, history to be teaching us? Like, why are we not teaching people? Like, why? I don't understand. Like, I'm not saying that, like, history classes are useless right now, because they're not. They do teach a lot. But I just don't think that they teach enough. And I don't think that a lot of teachers don't teach history well because a lot of kids are bored by it, and when they shouldn't be. It's like your history, like your ancestors, like, you should be proud. You know? And I also think that they should do something, like, specifically for, like, people of different cultures in America, because, like, they do a lot of, like, European and, like, white supremacist, like, in American based, like, history, which I get. Like, we're American and we're white. Okay, you're fitting the majority, or what you think is the majority of the people in America, but we are so much more than that. We have so much more culture. We should embrace it and like learn about the history of our ancestry's culture as well. Like you can't like I don't know, like I just think that they should do that too. Like not just American history, but your personal culture's history. Like maybe they should have like projects where like you can like invest in your own like ancestry and like figure it out and like figure out like where you derived from and like I don't know, like I just think that there's so many opportunities in our education system that people aren't taking because they're either too lazy or too busy or too preoccupied with bigger world problems. But do they not realize that our bigger world problems are going to rest in the hands of our future children? And if we neglect their education and teaching them the right way, then those future children's hands are going to not know how to hold up the world's problems. Like, sweetie, you need to teach them how to handle the world's problems. Otherwise, we're going to be helpless. Like, we're going to be fucking helpless in the future if you don't get your shit together. Like, yeah. But this movie just made me think about that. And, like, made me think about, like, our history and, like, our future and, like, where technology and, like, where everything, like, is taking us. Like, it's just so cool to, like, imagine and picture and, like, just, I loved how this movie, like, was able to, like, formulate all of those, like, secret, like, intuitions and secret passions of mine into an hour and 45-minute video, which was phenomenal with, like, perfect CGI. Well, not perfect. I don't know how to, like, spot perfect CGI because, like, obviously I'm not in design or graphics or any of that because, like, that involves way too much math. Do you see this brain? This brain is literally so butt stupid in math, it's not even funny. Like, oh my god, I'm so, like, horrible at math. Like, I can't do anything hardly math related. Like, sometimes, like, I remember in journalism, I used to get so pissed off because I would struggle so much with InDesign and the graphics and designing the magazine pages, and I was like, why am I struggling with this? It's not that hard. And they were like, well, there's, like, a lot of numbers and, like, math involved, and I was like, you just fucking answered my question why it's so fucking hard. Now I understand. Fuck this shit. Like, I was so mad. I was like, oh my god, I was trying for so hard and I couldn't figure it out. And then they finally explained to me why I didn't figure it out. And they didn't even realize. They were just kind of like offhandedly commenting, oh, there's a lot of numbers in math and graphic design. And I'm like, fuck. Well, no wonder I'm not good at it. Like, fuck. Yeah. Yeah, explains why I'm not very good at technology either, which is not great because, like, means I'm not gonna get as many jobs. But, like, to be honest, I really don't care about jobs. Like, I actually had, like, a recent discussion with my mom about this because she and my uncle and my dad too, like, literally every single parental figure in my life that you can imagine is pressuring me about school and pressuring me about my future and, like, pressuring me about, like, pursuing a good career with good paying money and la la la, like securing like just having a blanket of security. And I'm like, okay, I'm 17. I think we have some time to worry about my blanket of security for a while. Like, maybe by the time I hit my 30s, I can start saving up and, like, trying to, like, start a retirement. But, like, I'm in my early teens, not even an adult yet, like, legally. So, would you tell your fucking asses? And also, my career and, like, what I want to do is going to be solely based off of what I want to do. Not how much money I'm making, not how much I get along with my coworkers, but if it's what I really want to do. So, like, and if it's really something that I enjoy. So, I don't fucking care about the pay. Like, as long as I can survive on the pay, like, I am okay. Like, even if that means I'm, like, literally in a cafe where, like, let's say I was working in a cafe as a barista, like, would never work out because I'm way too clumsy, hate coffee, and, like, horrible at memorizing stuff. But, like, let's just say that I got a job as a barista, which freaking would never happen, but, like, let's just pretend. And, like, let's say I loved it there. Like, and I never got paid enough money, but, like, I didn't care because I loved it there. I would still continue working there till the day I died because I loved working there. That's exactly the mentality that I have for whatever future career or job or wherever I go that's what I want. Like, I don't care how little money I might make. I don't care how much money I might make. I don't care if I become rich or poor. I don't care if I just become like an average Joe. Like, I only care about my happiness and fulfillment in my career. Like, I don't give a shit about anything else. Like, I can be a workaholic all I want as long as I'm happy. You know, like, I only care about that. Like, I don't fucking care about money. I don't care about, like, how many job opportunities I get with my resume. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that. All I care about is surviving and being happy. And if I can do both of those things with a barista job, then I would be perfectly happy with living with a barista job my entire life. But, like I said, I would never be good as a barista because, like, horrible memory, hate coffee, and super clumsy. Like, I would literally burn not only myself, my coworkers, and possibly the customers, but, like, would just spill coffee everywhere, like, all the time. Like, it would be horrible, and I would never remember anybody's name, and, like, I'd probably give people out the wrong drinks and get fired the first day or some shit. I wouldn't even be interviewed or hired because, like, literally horrible. like, I don't think you could find a worse barista ever than this person right here, because, like, I'm, like, horrible at any of those kinds of stuff. Like, waiter, waitress, like, just, nah, I'm horrible. I'm not a people person. I'm clumsy, dorky, slow, like, horrible remembering things, and blind on top of that. Like, you really don't want me as your barista or any kind of, like, food person. Like, I could not be your waiter, waitress. Like, I could, like, just literally, like, so bad at that kind of stuff. Man, I'm getting tired. What time is it? Oh, it's 7:11. 7:11. Wow, I'm a child. Okay, anyways, yeah, I think this is it for this video, which is, like, technically a part 2 to the other video. Oh, I also wanted to talk about how this, movie, Ex Machina, reminded me kind of, these two animes. Well, technically they're manga that I've both read and watched. Well, I mean, I've read parts of them, and I've watched a few of their episodes. I didn't watch all of them because, like, I don't have the time. They're both pretty extensive anime and have many, many episodes because they're pretty old, which makes them really, really good, though. I think they're from the same kind of generation as Cowboy Bebop? I don't remember his name exactly. But, so yeah, there's this one anime called Ghost in a Shell, which they made a live-action remake, like, in 2016 or 2017, which I was morosely disappointed by, like, horrendously disappointed by, because Ghost in a Shell is a masterpiece and revolutionary and just, like, an amazing work of art. And the live action destroyed it. Like, fucking railed the whole fucking system. Like, I was so pissed after I watched that movie. Like, I fucking hated it so much. First off, they had Scarlett Johansson play the main character. The main character was a trans female. Can you see? They had a cis female actress play a trans female character. No! Like, if you're gonna, like, that's, like, whitewashing. Like, that's literally, like, oh my god, that's like, okay, that's like, oh my god, they've done this so much in the past, but that's like dressing up a white person in oriental clothing and being like, oh, they're Chinese, and, like, having them talk in a horrible Chinese accent. Like, that's basically what they did, and they just spat in the face of the creators of Ghost in the Shell. Like, it was horrible. Horrible. Like, oh my god, it was so bad. But, like, Ghost in the Shell, like, I don't really know how to explain it properly, because it's just so good. But it's so good. Like, oh my god, it's so, I don't know. And then there's also this other anime called Arika, which is basically, it kind of reminds me of Ex Machina, because, like, the main character, like, and Ava, the AI, like, kind of like low-key have a crush on each other, or the main character has a crush on Ava, a robot. Not the healthiest decision, boy. Like, oh my god. Okay, like, who the fuck falls in love with a robot? Like, Jesus Christ. Anyways, but, Ghost in the Shell, like, or Ghost in the Shell. I can never remember the full name because it's too long. But, like, kind of reminded me of Ex Machina because, like, Ava went through, like, a journey of self-discovery and, like, changed herself for the better and, like, went through a full transformation by the end of the film, in the same way that the girl in Ghost in the Shell did. And, like, I just thought that was, like, very symbolic and, like, pretty meaningful. And then Arika kind of had the same message behind it because Arika was found in a junkyard and was, like, an abandoned, like, robot, but it turned out that she had, like, a human brain, but, like, a robotic body. And so, like, this guy, like, who was, like, a mechanic or something, I think he fixed her up, and, like, she started out as, like, this barely functioning little girl with, like, robotic limbs, and, like, didn't know what she was doing with her life, and, like, was scared and terrified and super dependent on her mechanic father figure. And then throughout, like, the manga and the, like, anime, she, like, grew exponentially, and, like, she ended up, like, finding her true self and, like, becoming this, like, super badass character, kind of like the girl in Ghost in the Shell. And, like, same with Ava. Like, I feel like all three of them emanated, like, a journey of, like, self-discovery and, like just tearing down the walls that bound them. And in all three of their cases, those walls were, like, the, like, physical cages that they were put in, which were their, like, bodies, and they, like, pushed past their, like, body's limits and, like, mentally, like, just pushed it further, and which is, like, so cool. Like, I don't, like, even know how to, like, oh my god, it was so cool. But yeah, I just felt like those two animes, Arika and Ghost in the Shell, and the movie Ex Machina, like, all kind of, like, resonated the same message. And, like, I think that Ex Machina, like, either was heavily inspired by those two anime or, like, had the same ideals as them and just didn't realize it. But, like, I think it's super cool that they all three of them were, like, very similar and, like, super cool in their message ways. And yeah, I don't know, I'm really tired now, and, like, it's 7:17 and probably should go to bed, so good night.